Welcome back. It is time for the GAA Quick Picks. Mick McCarthy, Shane Hannon here. Lads, it's tight at the top.
Oh, it's tight at the top. But
updated rankings, Shane.
But who's at the top again? Remind me, I can't remember.
Monaghan's own, Shane Hannon, is top at the moment. 19 points acquired so far.
It's close though, it is close.
17 for Mick.
I had a good week last week. I was a penalty, the width of a penalty post or whatever. I was one of the best goalkeepers in the history of Gaelic football versus an outfield player away from having 4 out of 4.
Never back against Monaghan, hey.
Has this changed your enjoyment?
I will be next week.
Of the championship as well? Because sometimes when you play things like fancy football, whether it's NFL or the Premier League, you end up cheering on a wide receiver or a striker to score. In this case, did you spend, like last week, I was away but I was keeping an eye on the scores on Saturday and I only cared about the results from a quick picks.
I know, I can't stand it, but yeah, it takes over. Like, I'm in the pub shouting for like Armagh, like as if my life depends on it. I'd probably, to be honest, if we didn't done the picks, I probably would have veered towards Monaghan.
It's amazing. It's amazing how personal fans of counties take the quick picks though, because I was getting hate. I opted for Tyrone. That was the only one I got wrong last weekend. And yes, I got it very wrong. Kerry Mafia were tagging me.
You got 2 wrong last week.
Me?
Yeah.
What was the one I got wrong?
I don't know, but you got 2.
No, I got
3.
I went for Dublin and I went for Derry and Monaghan.
Oh, well, I think Shane has an extra point then.
Well, then,
there you go.
My apologies, Shane.
Oh, the lead has just been stretched.
You've just been put on to 20 on VAR.
Well, there you go.
That is true as well, because you picked Mayo.
Yes, for some reason I thought you had said Mayo.
No,
if you said Dublin
last
you're on
weekend.
20.
I was getting a lot of hate from Kerry fans who were saying they were tagging me, Joe Brawley, Anthony Moyles and a few others. I'm just going, what do you think of that, lads? I was like, here, lads, you have to pick a team at the end of the day.
It's not because Moylesy said that Kerry were there to be got at.
But then in the quick picks I opted for Tyrone as well. I thought the Tyrone lads, once they saw the green and gold in Croke Park, would react, but clearly they didn't, and Kerry were the ones who reacted to the red and white.
We called the 2 hammerings 50-50 games. You have to pick someone. Neither of them were 50-50 games. Like, I'd say the 3 of us all read them wrong. Like, you picked Mayo, but I didn't have Dublin hammering them.
No, I don't think anyone.
I thought that Dublin would win the game. I didn't think they would destroy.
Up until half time, I thought it was an arm wrestle. I thought Mayo were probably even a little bit unlucky to be in the position they were at half time. Haven't played reasonably well, but you could never have accounted for the way the second half went.
The Derry game was the only one we all agreed on, wasn't it? Yeah. We all went Derry for that one. That was the only clean sweep. Yeah, there you go.
Like Derry should have won by a bit more as well.
Should have, and the penalty miss at the end, of course, from McGuigan. By the way, I never mentioned the crappy quiz as well. Shane McGuigan, remember I'd said in last week's quiz that scored 2 or more championship goals. A point was taken away from me. I should have brought that up in the quiz, but here I am.
Slight controversy. I also got messaged by a player who had scored 2 goals.
Oh, really?
I was like, I think Wikipedia might be wrong.
Yeah, there you go.
Who was this?
Peter Cunningham from Offaly. Scored 2. He got 1 against Long.
Do you know what? I told you why I got this wrong. It was once the Tailteann Cup teams came into play, I was trying to get what was their last game in the Leinster Championship and so on, and I think I just got a little bit arse race, but nobody guessed them anyway. So unlike Shane McGuigan, who got, do you know what I think is like on the scores for that game, it said like 2 whatever, but obviously right beside it had 1-0 from penalties, and I must have just saw the 1 and moved on.
Which is more accurate?
Apologies to everybody involved.
We're all human.
You were ChatGPT. Who's more accurate?
Well, me.
Well, ChatGPT made one up, I suppose.
It literally invented the minute that Brian Habana scored an imaginary try.
Yeah, it's true.
The 35th minute of a try that never happened.
Mick will always
insane.
be
Where does that
one
come
over
from?
artificial intelligence. Mick is real intelligence.
I don't think they're. Apparently they're growing by they're getting 1,000,000 times more intelligent every second.
That's terrifying.
But I don't think they'll ever catch up with me.
No. But the confidence of that, I love it.
I assume every correction makes it smarter as it works its way through.
Still has a way to go.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Monaghan.
Talk about hurling, lads, no?
Well, by all means, I was going to ask him about Monaghan before we get on to the hurling.
So.
What did you make of the performance of Monaghan? Like, we're all criticising Armagh, but I feel not many people actually talked about Monaghan within the game.
So I think Monaghan, the Armagh performance played into the Monaghan game. Like, they have maybe slightly older players than Armagh, so slowing the game down was an idiotic move by Armagh. Monaghan will happily slow the game down and play it at a snail's pace, and then you have to criticise Armagh a little bit for that last play. Maybe McGeaney had an issue with the free being taken short, but
they asked
the referee. And they asked the referee, and also McManus being able to get the ball in that scenario. Like, clearly Monaghan were going to try and get the ball to him in a scoring position. Then Grugan, not like him, fouls him inexplicably. I think Monaghan just showed nerve, and they're the team that, and I said it on the quick picks last week, if it comes to the last 5-10 minutes and it's very, very nervy down the stretch, Monaghan will possibly come through. Like, they're a real clutch team, and that last play was clutch, and the penalties were fairly clutch too, has to be said. Per Comiskey for Armagh missing 2. Yeah, he's obviously the villain up in the Orchard County, but it can happen to anyone.
2 penalties may well have been the best 2 penalties I've ever seen.
The second one gave me a heart attack because it was so high into the goal. I was like, this is going over. But yeah, top left, top right, bang them in. Silky Jack McCarron penalties as well. It was brilliant. So look, delighted. And the quick picks next week will be interesting when I have to choose between Monaghan and Dublin. We'll see.
Well, I was asked to make poor Comiskey the answer to a question on the crappy quiz after that in the pub I was watching the penalties in. At the time I thought it was a great idea actually, but when I came to write it I just like I'm not going cruel here.
We'll leave off the part.
Yeah. So sorry about that. So I was talking to.
We're down to half a dozen games left at this stage. So Mick, you decided to spice it up a little bit. Well,
group decision.
It was in consultation, but your idea was to add in margins for this week.
So just that we've only got the 2 hurling semi-finals. We're going to pick the All-Ireland minor football final as well, but for the semi-finals for the next 2 weeks that we do a point for the correct score, and then we all pick a margin of 3 points, and then you get an extra point if you get that right.
So like the bookies, 1 to 3, 5 to 7, or 7 plus.
1 to 3, 4 to 6.
1 to 3, 4 to 6,
etc.
7 plus.
4 to 6.
Yeah, we're going 7 plus is good, instead of even the 7 to 9. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
I've gone 7 plus, and you can also call as your margin of victory either in extra time or penalties.
Oh no, I
think the margin penalties. Just goes by,
because I thought extra time counts, doesn't it? So otherwise Shane wouldn't have any points for Monaghan. So I'm okay with that.
No, that's fine. So it would be the margin of victory in extra time. So if the team was to win by 2 points in extra time, 1 to 3 would get you that bonus point. You get 2 rather than 1.
Exactly.
That's it.
Easiest way to do it, I think.
All Ireland semi-final, right? It hasn't happened yet, okay? But I was only I was just organising my tickets for Sunday there while we were waiting to come on air there, and I was just talking to you about I sat in very similar seats when Clare and Galway played in 2018, and Jason McCarthy got the last second equaliser for Clare. It was one of the best games I can ever remember, and it went to a replay, and there was a Brett, I feel like we're missing something, at least at semi-final level, of not having replays. Like, I think there's, and I don't mind playing extra time first. I'm not saying we have to have a replay, but I'm saying is you get to that thing after 90 minutes of hurling and somebody gets a last second equaliser, and it's like, do we really need to have penalties to decide? We're talking about an All-Ireland final. Like.
I just think say Clare and Kilkenny goes to a replay this week, say they had a replay this weekend, the winner of the Clare and Kilkenny match then automatically is at a disadvantage compared to the winner of Galway.
I agree, but that's because of the calendar, which doesn't allow replays. If this was organised in advance, then
as a fan though,
I think it massively takes away from it, I have to say.
But then you lose out.
It's the entire competition.
It's such an anticlimax leaving a match when it's a replay. You're like, well, we're both in limbo here. You weren't there for the historic moment.
You don't feel the excitement to go on, right, I'm going to get a ticket for the replay. That was particularly good.
No, I don't care about that. Like, really, and people can't really afford like the replay.
No, I know.
By the way, the semi-final.
But I'm saying just for semi-finals on
50 quid, another 50 quid to go to the match, and that's your whole family going. Like, we bought 7 tickets for the football.
It wouldn't be 50
350 quid.
It'd be played in a provincial place, and I think they are usually subsidised. Like, you'd probably be looking at 30 quid.
Fair enough.
You're not returning here.
No, I love the decide on the day. I love it. I agree. A final should definitely have a replay,
and it does, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. But I think for up to semi-finals, I'm happy out for decide on the day. 65s competitions, penalties, whatever you want to do, I do not care. Or else someone in the comments,
stay on.
Well, someone on YouTube said either in extra time have golden goal, so the first team to score a goal, or golden points, so you win by a margin of 2 points. It'd be a bit unfair to win by a margin of 1 in extra time, but say a team that the first team to get 2 up.
Yeah, wind comes into it as well then, but I don't know, what about like shortened periods or something?
You have to win the toss then, do you know the toss?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, but shortened periods could come into it as well, you know. I don't know.
After extra time, maybe 2 5 minutes.
I especially think in hurling, I just don't think that teams are capable of going and doing what Armagh and Monaghan did. It is a bit more dodgy in football, because if you play golden score, you could easily not have a score.
Yeah,
you know, for an awful long time.
Minutes.
You know, exactly. But anyway, look, sorry,
they're here. Penalties will happen if these.
I'm thinking of picking penalties. I am genuinely thinking of picking penalties.
Yeah.
Having sat through a couple of teams that I support going out on penalties, it is cruel.
It's torturous.
It is really
like when your county wins. I have to say, there's no feeling like it. Like when Rory Beggan makes that second save, I'm literally about to scream in in the restaurant. But if you lose, I can imagine it being brutal.
Because it's always been part of football, and we won in 1990 and so on, right? 2002 losing to Spain on penalties versus your GAA teams, where it's such a kind of a raw and unusual and alien feeling.
So 2002 was obviously just like much bigger because you were so hopeful during that game.
Of course, it's bigger.
You saw the Korea were there in the next round and the potential for it as well. But when Offaly lost the Christie Ring semi-final against Down, particularly when one of the shots that Offaly took, and it was the middle of COVID, so nobody could go, so I was watching it on a stream, which made it even more painful. But one of the Offaly shots hit the back stanchion and came back out and wasn't given as a goal. So there was always that feeling of injustice within it as well. And there was promotion on the line within that penalty shootout. In a way, I kind of think it was unfair that it had to finish on the day. I know the championships were a bit weird that year, but promotion, relegation was on the line on a penalty shootout. And to watch your team lose there was not an easy one.
I think when penalties are a part of hurling and Gaelic football, like you can get a penalty in normal time. So if it's a skill in normal time, why can't we do a shootout of those skills at the end of the game if it finishes level? Like, I don't get the whole
specific skill though, isn't it? Like, and it's something that generally one or two players have a kind of.
But it can be practiced by anyone. Like, it's not a lottery.
No, I know it's certainly not a lottery. I just don't think it's like it is a football. It's a soccer solution to like a GAA problem, because it's not. Like, if penalty shootouts didn't exist in football, are you telling me that this is the conclusion they would come to for a tiebreaker in Gaelic games?
They probably do 45s.
I don't think so. Well, whatever they do, I think what they'd do is they'd have more of it. If football didn't exist, if soccer didn't exist, I think the first instinct would be we're a high scoring sport. Football is the lowest scoring sport in the world. You have to break a tie in some way that doesn't involve another score. You know, and I don't think that's necessary in a high scoring sport.
I think if you did a penalty a 45 competition in Gaelic football, like 5 players from each, I think it would finish 2-1 to some team.
Yeah, it's very tricky.
And it would be maybe 3-2.
I've never thought the freeze thing was a good idea, I have to say, but because it's a similar thing. What you're saying is it's a skill of the game, it's not a lottery. It is a skill of the game, but it's not the game. And we might actually, the solution could involve the entire game. We could do it, like, you know.
Do you turf them out for another 5 minutes, as you say? Like, it could end scoreless after that, and then what? They're already goosed. Like, some of the Monaghan players, Gary Mohan, after he kicked his second penalty, he was limping back to the centre circle. It was like these lads were out on their feet. What
about just the next score wins, right? Or win by 2, right, or whatever. And if you lose the draw with the wind, you lose the draw, because, like, are you telling me there isn't an element of luck in a penalty shootout as well?
Like
people are like absolutely adamant that we can't have the advantage or whatever. But sure, look, there's going to be an element of luck in it, like, you know. Anyway, I'll talk about this till the cows come home. But
we'll let the listeners and viewers decide.
Everybody loves them.
Well, if it goes to penalties,
everybody loves them. I'm going to be pilloried for this. I don't think it's part of the sport.
It's going to be a huge talking point next Monday and Tuesday if one of these semi-finals goes
unbelievable
to penalties. And
there's a big chance in the next 2 weeks, like, yeah,
I'm not against the free taking idea, but because for me, our part of the entertainment would be, as long as not your team involved, a non-free taker, as slowly but surely they start to come further out the field.
This is like
I like the idea that 2 players are involved in a penalty shootout, so you have the goalkeeper as part of that equation and he has a chance, whereas when it's literally just man against elements when it comes to the kicking.
But is it not like the Munster,
keep it a contest?
Munster's lose.
Well, yeah, because then God forbid you have a prop trying to kick a ball over the bar. Do you know, it's the same in Gaelic football. You have a full back.
Does the same with as we did with so it's just the 5 nominated players
and take again. But is that not cruel?
5 in football,
Is that not cruel though?
On the same people having to take penalties over and over.
The pressure on those lads to take twice. We saw it with Cummins for Armagh, missing twice is
I'm with you, Shane. I want to see a loose head prop have to step up 45 metres.
Well, Martin Williams missed the penalty for Cardiff. No Welsh team has ever made a Heineken Cup final, and they lost on penalties, and Martin Williams, the number 7, missed the penalty in a shootout. It was one of the years Munster, I think, made it to the final. It's just like, that's ridiculous. I don't know what's that got to do with the match that they just played. Do you know what I mean? Like, Martin Williams, especially in rugby, he never ever needed to kick a penalty in any part of his rugby career.
It's good TV versus being maybe fair to
100%. Yeah, like, they lost the coin toss basically because they ended up having forwards kicking penalties. Like,
right, let's get on to the hurling first then. We are going to do the minor football final as well, so you're going to pick a winner. All 3 of us are, because Gers away, and then we're going to pick a margin or method of victory, and that'll get you the extra point. And by method I mean penalties. So let's start with the first game tomorrow then. Galway
method
against
of victory. Hardness,
hunger,
yeah.
desire, bravery.
Hunger won it for them.
Galway versus Limerick. Shane Hannon, you can have first shout. All-Ireland semi-final tomorrow, defending champions up against the beaten Leinster finalists.
I've been with Galway all year on the quick picks, to my detriment for the Leinster final, just about to my detriment for the Leinster final.
They gave you a point back for the tip game though.
Yeah, true, got one back. Look, it's hard to know where Limerick are at. And what I mean by that is the gap has been closed between Limerick and the rest to a degree that we haven't seen in the last 5 or 6 years. This year, I don't think they've won a match by more than 2 points. Am I right in saying that?
No.
So like that,
yeah, you are right. Yeah.
That's rare. So like, you know where I'm going with the margin of victory here based on that. I do think this is where the Galway journey ends. I think it's going to be a close match, and a lot of the analysis this week has been it'll be a score between the two teams. Obviously Declan Hannon being missing is huge. The teams are fascinating. Kyle Hayes probably predictably enough gone to 6, but Hegarty gone to 7 is surprising. We'll see if he starts there. I mean, he'll be wearing number 7 on his back. But I just think John Kiley and his team have the know-how to get over these games, and I still think they'll win on Saturday evening at Croker. They'll have a big support there as well. Limerick by 1-3 for me.
Okay. It's only been less than 3 points the last couple of championship wins for Limerick against Galway.
Yeah, 3 I think, hasn't it? Yeah. Let's talk about the Limerick team for a minute. I know we've already talked to Anthony Nash about it, but like, it's intriguing because what they're doing is the first time they ever did it, where they moved Kyle Hayes from centre forward to accommodate Cian Lynch moving up, moving back. You're like, whoa, what are they doing? And it worked out, and it's always worked out. They moved Dan Morrissey back to full back. Mike Casey's injured, and it's like now you're playing. You've done it so much now that you're playing where arguably Dan Morrissey his favourite position. Now he's played there enough that you wouldn't be sure, but arguably he's a wing back.
Yeah.
Mike Casey's definitely a full back playing in the corner. Garrod Hegarty's a half forward playing wing back. Kyle Hayes is probably a centre forward playing centre back. And all these things are manageable, of course they are, but there was a solution in just moving Dan Morrissey up, putting Mike Casey back into his preferred position, and having Richie English, who many would argue is as good as anybody they have at cornerback anyway, into his preferred position. Especially, and you have everybody playing,
which is what Kyle
where
did in
they
the league final.
belong. Yeah.
You're thinking surely you trialled this when Hannon was out for the league final, you'd revert back to that again. That's not to say this is the Limerick team that starts. This could be a total.
I know.
Look at their bench as well. They've such strength and depth. Like, Hannon's absence is big, but it's not fatal. Do and then it's the Galan. I presume Dahi Burke picks up Galan, maybe.
Well, that's the thing. They've flipped their 3 and 6,
yeah,
which I didn't think.
So you don't. Maybe it's unsure who picks up Galan, but I just think they have too much fire.
Galan was a big problem last year, Mick. He scored 8 points.
Well, see, that's and like I do understand that. I think Scahill was saying on the Hurling pod, you don't want to sacrifice what Dahi Burke has been doing this year, which has been the catalyst for everything good that Galway have been doing at centre back, and it's been great to see him there. But he is probably still the best full back in the country, and it's like if you have a guy that's like won the Munster final on his own again in a team that were probably elsewhere beaten on the day, arguably. I'm not the person to say it, obviously, with my own bias, but you would say that Aaron Galan's performance was what won Limerick the game,
and you could argue,
and it was in a one-on-one battle. So do you put your best guy on him? I think that makes sense.
I think so. I think if you accommodate for anybody, you accommodate for Galan within the system. As tempting as it would have been to keep Burke at 6 and have him around where Cian Lynch is due to start, you make that switch with 2 guys who are comfortable in playing either position, and you just back Burke to try and shut down Galan. He's not going to be able to shut him down entirely, but maybe that's the feeling that he's the best matchup for it, and that's why Henry's had to make the change.
I'm so conflicted by this because I've had this feeling about Galway all week, right? But I've never changed. The feeling is based on the struggles that Limerick have had. It's been based on the fact that they had such a good game plan against Tipperary, and it's a feeling that's based on a lot of even what David Herrity's been telling us on the show about Shefflin and his preparation. And it kind of came to, I was just watching the Tip match thinking, this is a manager who knows what he's doing. And I think he had a very specific game plan that choked the life out of Tip, and they should have won by a lot more. They should have won that game easily. They didn't score an awful lot, but the only way they're going to manage against Limerick is by tightening up the game. It needs to be a low scoring game, and I think they learned a lot from the Leinster final. The only thing is, and it was pointed out really well on analysis on the Sunday game actually, is I think it was Liam Sheedy, like if they use the ball in the way that because they had so many people back, if they use the ball in the way they did against Tip, Limerick will punish them for it in a way that Tip just aren't at that level, so the other side of it is Limerick, probably more important side. All the things we talked about positions, all the things we talked about, really surprised me in Limerick the day of the Munster final was the changes. They felt like a team. It felt to me like, again, just from history, one of those ones where you'll hear afterwards that like the manager thought we're missing something here, or there's something just not right. I need to do something. I need to light a fire. And that's very natural when you've been on the road as long as this team and have the success of this team. So there's a few things there that are just making me think that they could be caught. The thing that's working against me, and that why I think I am ultimately going to pick the exact same as Shane, Limerick 1-3, is that they're just finding a way to win it, and that's they're not where they are, they're not where they were, but because of them, I think what they're showing now is how great a team they really are, because they're winning every game that matters, the Cork game, the Clare game, and now we'll see what happens this week. But if they win all of them by a point, and the All-Ireland final by a point, it'll be one of the greatest All-Irelands ever won. So I just think that they'll find a way.
Wouldn't it be hilarious?
They'll stay in the game, you know what I mean? And then at the end, whose experience are you going to trust in the last 5 minutes?
I know it's unlikely maybe, but the conversation all year about Munster hurling being so much better than Leinster, wouldn't it be so funny to a degree? Kilkenny and Galway win their semi-finals this weekend, and all of a sudden you have an all-Leinster final, and everyone who's been saying Munster hurling is...
I can promise you what the narrative will be, Shane, is that Kilkenny and Galway have been able to walk their way into the season.
Well, maybe that, they'll flip it on its head. Yeah, maybe.
And in Kilkenny's case, particularly, they have a month of a break after working their way through.
The narrative of that, though, wouldn't be fair either, right? But it's also... I feel like that's very top line analysis about the Munster Leinster thing. Nobody thinks that Galway and Kilkenny aren't in that league. It's just that it's only Galway and Kilkenny. And that's the issue. Whereas there's some years 4, some years 5 Munster teams that are all playing at a similar level. It was 4 this year. And then there's only 2 in Leinster. I like personally anyway, I don't ever think that anybody like seriously considered Galway and Kilkenny below that level.
No.
The lack of competition below that, I suppose.
It is, yeah. And you're kind of thinking, right, they're in the semi-final. Well, they're in the, I suppose, only quarterfinals when it comes to Galway. They've always got a tougher game. But yeah, look, I think I'm going with Limerick
1-3 as well.
What do you think?
I'm going Limerick 4-7.
You think that they'll stretch out?
4-6.
Or sorry, 4-6 I should say. I think they'll have just a little... look, I think they're going to have a little bit too much. I think down the stretch again this year. People kind of forget the goal. We were ahead with 9 minutes to go last season. That's how close that game was, and then Limerick had a finish in them. I don't think Limerick will allow Cathal Mannion to get on as much ball as he did against Tipperary, and that was really crucial to Galway.
I don't think Limerick don't change how they play for anyone.
No, they don't.
Now they might not. So they're not going to like pick up Cathal Mannion specifically.
No,
you just think their natural style of play.
I think they'll press on him better than Tipperary did, and I think he won't get to walk out with as much ball as he did. I also think that Limerick won't hit the ball into that Galway half back line in the same way that Tipperary.
No, I don't either.
I think they've got more variety to their attack as well. And alright, I take the point that without Finn and without Hannon, you are seriously disrupting that back six, and it is a question mark. Kyle Hayes, I think, last played 6 when he was under 21, and Hegarty only really at the very start of his Limerick career was playing in the half back line.
Plays centre back for his club, but that's junior level, I suppose.
And it's not
where can we get him involved the most, isn't it?
Exactly. And look, maybe they want Gerard Hegarty to get involved more in the game as well. Hegarty generally springs to life in finals. The semi-finals have been a little bit quiet in recent years, but the warning would be that while people have been kind of writing off his form earlier in the season, I think there's going to be a big game out of Hegarty no matter where he plays. And Cian Lynch, reportedly this hamstring issue is behind him now at this stage. You get him back in to pull the strings. Even if they need to adapt and make changes in game, there are so many adaptable players in that Limerick team. I think even if, say, it's not working for them at 6 initially, they can make changes. Like Will O'Donoghue could sit back, Kyle Hayes could go back, you could drop Cian Lynch back into the middle of midfield. You can make these changes because they're so versatile.
Can I tell you my worry though is you're saying Finn and Hannon, Limerick are good enough to overcome losing 2 like linchpins like that, but I don't know if they're good enough if Mike Casey isn't hurling at his best at the moment, Dermot Burns is not hurling at his best at the moment, nobody's talking about that, and Gerard Hegarty's certainly not, and Cian Lynch certainly isn't, right? Now they could all have stormers this week, but you know there's 3 players in the backs, and then your best, most important player as well, who's back in the team now, which is a good sign for sure. But none of them are at the full tilt of what we know they're capable of this year.
I almost feel like for the likes of Burns and Casey and Hegarty, it's like riding a bike. They've been in so many semi-finals and finals in the last number of years that now that they're back in a semi-final when it's squeaky bum time, I just think they're going to kick into another gear. We haven't seen what they're capable of course.
Harry Nash hasn't been at the same level that he was last year. Now I think he's been hurling well actually, but he hasn't had as much of an impact on the games as he's had.
I wouldn't be surprised if one of those players you mentioned will be man of the match this weekend. I haven't had a quiet year so far. Just click into gear.
4-6 for me, 1-3 for you guys.
Weird feeling about golf.
See, gut instinct, going against your gut instinct is a dangerous thing in the quick picks.
See, I have a feeling now I'm going to go the other way, and I'll explain. We're getting on to Clare.
Right, Will hits Galway. Obviously he was going to go for.
I'll tell you where I'm going. I remember in 2005, and it's funny, it's Galway and Clare are involved again. We were going for 3 in a row Kilkenny Cork finals, and there was a sense that nobody was anywhere near them. And I remember, and then I think they played even the next year, whatever it was about that year, and I was at a lot of games that year, I was watching a lot of games, I was absolutely convinced one of them would be caught. And it was the year the back-to-back, or they weren't back-to-back, they were a week, 2 weekends of semi-finals, and Clare played Cork in the first match, and I was in the hill for it, and I've talked about it many times in the show. Clare 5 points up with 5 minutes to go, Cork win by a point without scoring a goal, and it's a nightmare. I still think about it, right? Awful. And then the following week Galway go out in a goal blitz against Kilkenny. Niall Healy I think gets a hat-trick, and they beat them, they shocked them, and it's a Galway Cork final. And I remember just being absolutely adamant that one of them would be, neither of them were where they had been and so on, and nobody was counting the other teams. And I just have the same feeling this year. I don't see Kilkenny Limerick final. Now my worry is in going for Clare, and I'll explain my Clare reasons, is that I've got it wrong and it's got to be Galway Kilkenny.
You got PTSD from
exactly. But yeah, the Clare reasons, I touched on them briefly on the show during the week, but just for this, right, is that Tony Kelly talked after the Dublin match on TV, his man of the match interview, and I thought it was really interesting. From a camp that doesn't release anything, he just was kind of like just chatting away, and he was like, look, we paced ourselves properly this year through the round robin. Last year we hadn't done it in a couple of years. Through COVID we kind of forgot, and we went hell for leather, and we had nothing left. Now I think physically that's what he thinks in his head. I think you add to that, it was actually almost emotionally as well. I think Clare were a rabble. If you watch the Clare Wexford game, realistically, if we weren't in denial, we would have seen what happened. We would have seen what was coming in the Kilkenny game, because they just weren't good enough. So I don't think that's anywhere close to the case this year. I think they're fitter. I think they're ready to go. Apparently everybody's at full tilt except for Conor Cleary, who I think we need to probably write off at this stage.
Just checking the Clare team there, yeah.
We need to write off at this stage. I haven't heard anything to suggest that he's going to be suddenly back in there. I don't think that's the way they're doing things.
Dave McCarthy's also not part of the panel, but he could come in as an injury joker. That can happen.
Yeah. So. Sorry, I've heard about Aidan McCarthy. I was thinking of specifically the players who went off injured against Dublin. But yeah, you're right, Aidan McCarthy's a big loss. But actually I wouldn't be concerned about the Clare forwards. It's the Clare backs that I'd be worried about. And I do think actually that Kilkenny will have chances, and I think they'll take most of those chances. What I will say though is Kilkenny scored 4 goals against Galway and shouldn't have won the game. Now say 3, because obviously the goal was what won it for them, the last goal. They scored 5 against Wexford and lost the game. Kilkenny, you can score against Kilkenny, and there's probably not a better scoring forward line in the country at the moment than Clare. So I just think if they're fully there in a way that they weren't last year, I don't know if we've actually seen Clare properly match up against Kilkenny yet. That wasn't the real game last year. Do you know? And that's where I just feel is that all the talk of where Clare have been and how close they've been to Limerick, and maybe them being the second best team in the country, we're getting closer to the Kilkenny game, and all we're thinking about is last year's game, and everyone's forgotten that feeling they had throughout the Munster Championship.
Yeah,
I think they'll give them a great game, and I don't know, I'm 51-49 here, but I just think they'll scrape it. I'm tempted to go penalties.
Yeah, not to totally give away my prediction here, but I think the Clare forward line won't play as poorly as they did last season.
Not a hope.
So
and also they won't like resort as quickly as they did to like 100-yard shots. Like this year you've kind of got Dermot Ryan doing that. Nobody else is doing it. It's like he's appointed, you know, as the person, whereas last year like McInerney was doing it. Fitzgerald was so wasteful. He actually played well in that game and scored a few scores, but he was like as many wides and so on. So I just think I think they'll be much smarter in how they approach the game as well.
I think they'll run the ball a little bit more this year as well. It was incredibly effective against Dublin.
You going penalties?
No, I don't think so. I'll go 1-3.
Clare 1-3.
Yeah.
Go on, Shane, how are you going?
I also think it'll be a 1-score game, 1 to 3 points. Like looking at the Clare team there, Conlon 6, McInerney 7. If they are fit, which it appears they are, that's an unbelievable boost for Clare. And look at the Clare forward line, like Duggan, Kelly, Taylor, Galvin, O'Donnell, Rogers. Rogers has been brilliant this year so far. I just think, right, Clare have definitely bridged the gap on that 12-point semi-final defeat last year to Kilkenny. I know Paul Murphy was saying during the week, like when Kilkenny get to a semi-final, something else just clicks. I don't think he ever lost a semi-final, All-Ireland semi-final.
No, amazing,
which is incredible,
absolutely amazing.
That's an unbelievable record. That's like Brian Fenton sort of stuff. I do think Kilkenny, with the extra little bit of break, I know Clare weren't massively troubled in their quarter-final, but it still is extra tear on the legs. I just have a feeling for Kilkenny in this semi-final. I really, really do. I think, and the turning point for them was getting that last-minute goal against Galway. That is just what they needed. You saw the joy on Cody's face on the sidelines. You saw what it meant to Derek Ling and the selectors as well. I just think the break, the forward line that we mentioned for Kilkenny as well, and I think they'll get their matchups correct. Like Ling hasn't put a foot wrong in that regard so far this year. No, I just, 1-score game, 1 to 3 points for Kilkenny, I think.
Is there an argument 4 weeks is too long to wait in this day and age? Like, as in, like, I mean, back in the day, that's a perfect amount.
Said that to Tommy Welsh when he
didn't want 6, but 4 was nice.
But he said, you know, when you have a squad like Kilkenny or Limerick or Clare or Galway, like with the strength and depth that they have this year, the 15-on-15 games in training are as intense as anything. And he says sometimes you could have the so-called second string team beating the first team by 2 or 3 points in training.
I think as well, with the injuries that we've had for all 4 teams coming into this, having that extra period off could prove to be very helpful in the end. We'll see who walks onto the field at the weekend, because
you're very suspicious about these teams.
I'm incredibly suspicious about it.
Kilkenny team's name tonight, isn't it?
No, it has to come out.
Sorry. Is Adrian Mullen not fit?
We'll find out. Yeah.
See,
there were plenty of rumours that he was getting a bridging operation which would allow him to play in the semi-final and the final, but he obviously hasn't done a huge amount, it would seem, since the Wexford game when his thumb was split. And Mossy Keown is doubt because of his hamstring injury. So again, this is where I say let's look at what teams actually take the field on Sunday afternoon.
That's a huge one. Adrian Mullen is naturally a big one, but Martin Keown is,
especially if Cleary's missing and you could send him in there.
Exactly.
Gaelic Plus has released a Kilkenny team, which shows Adrian Mullen and Martin Keown starting.
Okay, well there you go.
That's the only source I have for it, but if that's correct, Mullen and Keown named to start for Kilkenny.
Now look, they could easily drop out on Sunday. Maybe they're not 100% fit, but that would be a huge boost for them if they're available, because I think there is still plenty of firepower in that Kilkenny forward line. Clare have conceded 13 goals in championships so far this year, so both teams are liable to concede goals. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few green flags raised on both sides for this weekend. So you've already put your neck of the line there, Shane, by saying you're going Kilkenny 1-3.
1-3.
Nick?
Yeah, sorry, I said Clare 1-3.
The other way?
Yeah.
That is the confirmed team, by the way.
And I'm also going Clare 1-3 as well.
Right. We'll be in for a good weekend if our predictions are right.
Oh, these could be 2 amazing semi-finals.
And that's not to say they're not after extra time either.
Well, the Clare Kilkenny, I was so excited about it last year because of Clare's journey up until that point, and it's funny, I was the complete opposite to you. You know, you said all the warning signs were there in the Wexford game. I kind of thought this is a team who are a little bit emotionally tired, but now that they've won and now that they played really well in that last 10 minutes, they're ready for Kilkenny, and this is going to be a real battle.
Was the hope, but it wasn't the reality, unfortunately.
Kilkenny have just got this really good thing in semi-finals as well. I mean, I remember we were talking to Paul Murphy about it last year. 2019, they genuinely believed, when everyone was saying that Limerick were already emerging as a great team at that point, Kilkenny were ready to put them back in their box in 2019, and the intensity they put in that game was insane. They're probably going to need some performance on the level of last year, and I take the point of one of our commenters during the week who said, all well and good if Mikey Butler goes to track Tony Kelly, but they could do with another Mikey Butler to try and mark Shane O'Donnell at the same time.
This is the issue now, as well. Like, if everybody plays, like, the problem last year was Clare weren't playing well, so they needed Tony Kelly to do everything, and it wasn't the day for him to do everything. If Tony Kelly, if everybody is hurling well, more space does become available for Kelly. That's just the way things work. You can't man mark someone if everybody else is firing. You can, but you can't like shut them down. There'll be space everywhere else. So,
all right, quick fire on the minor final then.
Yeah.
Shane Hannon, which way are you going? Margin.
This is just 1 point for this one, isn't it?
Oh, just 1 point for this one. Okay.
Yeah, Athletic Grounds.
Only.
Do me a favour here, Will.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to have to do all these calculations.
Shane getting 2 bloody picks for this one, like when he's already got a 3 point lead.
I'll talk you through it. So Sunday 1 o'clock at the Athletic Grounds. That's the other thing. A lot of people giving out that this match is in the Athletic Grounds. It obviously suits Monaghan and Derry geographically, but that it should be in Croke Park. Give these young minor lads a chance to play. Maybe
part of a triple header would be very early if that happened.
I wouldn't put it on the same day as you just put it on some other time.
And then there's the controversial thing. If they picked next Saturday, there's a lot of Monaghan fans there for the Dublin game. If you pick Sunday, there's a lot of Derry fans there for the Derry Kerry game. So you're favouring one of the minor teams, I suppose, by putting them on Saturday or Sunday.
If they weren't in the senior, yeah,
exactly. Both have been they've played in the Ulster minor final, and it was an unbelievably close game. Went to penalties where Derry won on penalties. That benefited Derry because they then went on to play the Connacht runners up, who were Galway in the quarter final, and they beat Galway. Monaghan had the daunting task of playing Mayo, the Connacht champions, but unbelievable performance against Mayo that day, got through that one. And then they both had 2 seriously tough semi-finals. Derry beating Dublin well, 3-11 to 1-7 in that semi-final, and Monaghan getting past a really fancied Kerry minor side by a goal in their semi-final. Like Dermot Malone is the Monaghan manager, who was on that Monaghan Ulster winning team at 13 and 15, recently retired, and what they've done this season has been incredible. I think 1939, the year the Second World War broke out, is when Monaghan were last in an All-Ireland minor final. Fun fact for you all out there.
I always thought when someone prefaces back to that, going, I think it was 1939.
Yeah, well, good quiz question. 39-45, Second World War. Damien McArlane as well, this Derry team. This is going to be a remarkably close game, and I can't wait to go to it. Actually, there's going to be a brilliant atmosphere. I think that's the advantage of a provincial ground as opposed to Croke Park. Yeah, these players will never have played in an atmosphere like this, because a lot of Monaghan and Derry fans that rarely follow the minors maybe are travelling to this game to support their teams. Obviously I'm going to have to go for Monaghan. Have to. I just feel like they've been playing so well.
Well, I haven't seen any of Armagh, and I did watch a good chunk of the Monaghan Kerry game, and I thought they were brilliant. I thought they were in control of that game, in a, and it's in some ways that's me trusting that Kerry are good, and there's a little bit of instinct going on here. I haven't been following it obviously the way Shane has, but just based on that I'm going for Monaghan as well.
Oh, it's Monaghan across the board. I hope we're not putting a hex on them, Shane.
You're going for Monaghan?
Touch wood.
Athletic Grounds Sunday afternoon.
Up the Farney.
They're the quick picks.